You are welcome to this overview of Viva's quality improvement system. What we're going to do today, as we've finished the 150 standards, is to have a look, remind ourselves what QIS is about, and the journey that we've been through and the journey that we are yet to go on. So I'll go through a few slides fairly quickly, and then take questions from people as to what's going to happen next, and particularly areas that you feel that you would want us to revisit in the new year, or I mean, it could be sooner, but probably webinars will be in the new year to help you through this final process. So just to remind us of what QIS is all about. Obviously, it's about quality improvement. It's about capacity building. It's about a journey to improve our quality. So it's not just a one point in time thing, but it's an ongoing process. Even when we finish this cycle, we endeavor to continue to improve. It's child focused. There are many capacity building, organizational capacity building tools out there, but we haven't found another yet that is specifically child focused, and that's why a lot of organizations do appreciate it. It has international standards. It's measured against international standards, which were agreed at its time of design 14, 15 years ago. For what those standards were, and Viva has continued to keep up to date with those standards and with the organizations that hold them. And QIS is about learning together. We deliberately use QIS in a network context where the weak and the strong can learn together, and we can share resources and share ideas. We talk as well about the DNA of QIS. What is it that makes it unique? And there are three things particularly that we believe are the DNA. First of all, it's the systems and the processes that we create together during the QIS journey. So for your own organization, you create your own systems and your own processes that are unique to your setting. So we don't want copy-paste, because copy-paste doesn't work. So we can share learning, but then you adapt it for your own organization. Secondly, a part of the DNA is that it's value-based. QIS was designed specifically for Christian organizations, but in some countries, and at the moment in Uganda, it is being shared outside of those Christian boundaries to get into government schools. But we agreed with government officials last week that there are still values, whatever faith or no faith you have, there are values deeply inherent within QIS about the value of children. Of course, as Christians, we see the example that Jesus sets of his infinite value of children and what he thinks of anybody who harms them. And so that runs right through QIS, not just the value of children, but also of financial integrity, integrity in handling staff issues, and so on. And then the third thing that makes the QIS DNA is that it's delivered within a local network. And however big or small that is, we encourage people to work together. So maybe it's a little cluster of schools or churches or organizations, but within a context where within that network, people are able to improve their quality together. The elements of QIS, there are standards that we are seeking to achieve for working with children. There's been a self-assessment process, pre and post training, that is available in Kobo Connect now, which is a simple online app. Actually, you can also enter into it offline, and then we can get that and interpret and send you back your results. But self-assessment is important. And then from that self-assessment, you will in the future be receiving tailored training. From that training, we create action plans for improvement in your organization. And then we go to verification, where first of all, an internal and then an external team will actually look at the achievements that you've made and whether you are meeting these standards and at what level. And when that process has been gone through, then you are certificated. We should well know the 6 modules by now, and we'll just have a look at the overview of the topics in a moment. But there are the 6 modules. And one of the things that I will be asking in a minute as we look at each topic is, are there ones that we particularly have found challenging that we would want to revisit? So the cycle has been, first of all, that we've committed to this process. And on that, I particularly want to commend Iman from Mwanza and David from St. Paul's Chibando for their absolute commitment over this last 6-8 months, that every single week almost they've been tracking the journey of QIS. And I hope that it's been a great help to them. But kudos to you for going through this journey very, very faithfully. Secondly, we will have assessed our strengths and weaknesses in each stage and each module. Then hopefully these webinars and the daily standards would have helped to equip you to, number 4, make the journey of improvement. And one of the things we will talk about today is what is still needed to help you in the journey. And number 5, we review after we've been training, then we continue to review and make improvements. So when we set out, especially at the beginning of our COVID lockdown, we decided to turn the training virtual, and we counted that there were 150 standards and 150 work days, and here we are. We finished those standards last week. So we've covered each of those at the highest level of QIS. Of course, there's a standard higher than QIS, which is, first of all, it's God's standard. But we're not saying QIS is the pinnacle of everything. But 150 is well enough to keep you busy and out of trouble. Under that accountability level are the foundations, and there are 27 aims that we have gone through. Now, for each aim, we've created a doodly, and they're on the Crane YouTube site at the moment. They will soon be on a Viva website as well. And then we've created a daily standard for each of the accountability standards that just gives an overview and 1 or 2 things for children to do in line with that. But we're aware that the details of each of the 150 standards are really quite complex, and I'm sure that there are many of us that would like more information on how to achieve any one of them, which is why we're here today. So the award levels, these are 2 new logos that have been created. You can see that Viva's had a rebranding, and so these are the new standards that you will be given to use on your letterhead, to have a poster in your organization at the point that you have been externally verified. So you'll either get the accountability level or the foundation level. And you will know what an achievement either of them is and should be very proud of it. So what happens next is that your network team will be working with you to review what level you have achieved at foundation level, checking through all the evidence that you have for your 27 different aims against those aims that we've looked at. Is there sufficient evidence that you have met that foundational aim? And then when that has been achieved, we will look at the accountability level as well. And what we have found in the past is that for those who have consistently worked very hard, not just at the foundation level, but trying to achieve the accountability level, if they've had sufficiently long to work on it, then they might surprise themselves and actually find that they are at the higher level. The accountability level, you do have to provide evidence that you have met each of those 150 standards. So that's quite a lot of paperwork. And it's not that you have to have one piece of paperwork per standard, because, for example, a child protection policy is actually the evidence that, that you've achieved several of the standards. So your network team will help to guide you through that process of what you would need to have in place. But also you will be given a checklist where you have all the standards in place, all the suggested evidences, and you can begin to prepare your portfolio of evidence that you would want to give to the external verifiers. So through January, February, March, normally a 3-month period, whether those 3 months or any other, then your network team would be helping you to make sure that you have your evidence in place. When they're confident that you're ready, there will be an external team that will, first of all, in these days, will virtually check your evidence. We will find a way to upload your evidence into some sort of shared drive, and there will be people who are very experienced in QIS who will study what you have presented and either say it's adequate or that it needs some tweaks to raise you to the foundation or accountability level. And you'll be given a short period of time to improve that before you are given your award. And then at some point, you will have a physical visit by somebody who's coming to check your place, your school or your church or your organization, to see that what you have on paper is indeed the reality on the ground. And they will be people, those external verifiers will be people who are experienced in those particular areas, and often they have a lot of experience in QIS as well. It might be somebody who's from another network or who's from a particular background. So those people haven't yet been selected, partly because obviously we're all under some constraint at the moment. And then for Crane, probably in March, April, possibly pushing it into June, those external visits will happen depending on travel constraints. But the great reward in it is to be able to proudly post that logo. So what I would like us to do, for those of us who are on the call and who've been studying, we have the different aims and the subtopics of the standards that are appearing now, first of all for people care. And we obviously can't review it all at this stage, but I do want us to think broadly about what has been easy or difficult in the people care, and what we feel needs some particular attention, some templates, some support. For example, we've been talking about job descriptions. Do we have all of those things in place? Where would we get them, and what would we do either to help an organization or to give to an organization what they need? So we're open now for questions. We're going to go through each of the 6 modules.
Yeah, I'll just make some estimations on Unity. I think from some experience, and I have interacted with a number of people, including some staff that come from different organizations, I realized that some of them really feel excited when they get to know that every morning there is some kind of get together, something that brings them together, to pray together, to share together. Some people may not take it as a very, very important thing. Others think it's a wastage of time, but actually it's a very, very, very important component, because it helps people to belong, to know each other, but also to get to have some reflection on the kind of work that they are doing. So for those organizations that think that it is still a wastage of time, I think it's wise really to start off a day with something. And that's one of the elements of Unity, where people are always having time to come together and have time together to share, because that helps people to have a sense of belonging and not feel attached and own the work that they do.
Thank you, Humphrey.
No. Maybe let me just run through them, and then I can shut up and some other people can say something. On reward, and every time you talk to people and talk about reward, many people think of money, they think in terms of money. When you talk about the word motivation, what comes into people's heads is about how much is your paycheck, how much comes on my account, or how much cash do I get at the end of the day, or those allowances. We have those who have those terminologies, and I think that's where reward is. But it's always important to understand that people are motivated differently, and what matters is to understand individuals and what motivates them, to know who actually their personalities are, so that they can be motivated well. The word thank you means a lot to some people. Recognizing somebody even in the presence of other people means a lot, because we also know that those who think motivation is about money, that money motivation only goes for, I think, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And after that, then they will still need more. So money motivation is really not effective, and it's not sustainable. And then on management, it's really, really important to know these 3 components. Number 1, people need to know what they are supposed to do. There are people who report to their place of work and they don't know how their day is going to be. They always get instructions when they reach there. That is very dangerous, and that can also bring problems. So people need to know what they are supposed to do. They know who they are supposed to report to, and they know where they can go in case they have some challenges or they have problems. In some cases, you find somebody reporting to more than one person, which one would call matrix management. but it's because of particular areas of their job descriptions. But under normal circumstances, there is one particular person one is supposed to be responsible for. So it's a very, very important element that we need to think about. And on training, training starts right from the day the person enters the organization. Actually, they will tell you that even during interviews, somebody starts learning. And so the successful induction, how you orient the new people means a lot on how people will fit well within the organization and they will be able to move on. But people need to be supported, and we need also to differentiate between development, training and development so that we know which is which. People need to know how to do their work, and we always need to assess which of those areas they need support in. And of course, all this is possible when everybody feels safe in the environment that they are working in, and that is under health and safety. People need to be protected, and people need to be given guidance on how they can protect themselves. With the minimal resources available, still people can be protected. And with all this, if you don't have a policy, it's very difficult to go through them successfully. So the policy should be there, the human resource policy. We talk about all different policies that help our staff to know how to live. And so, as Nim said, a policy is very, very important. It is actually one of the indicators that we start with when we are looking at how you're improving in your different levels of QIS modules. Thank you very much. And I wish you well as you continue to progress and make sure that you serve children better after putting all this into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Humphrey. That's a very helpful summary of people care. And I wonder if you, or I think Imi is also on the call, could advise us if we want help with our people care module for applying the standards. Who should we ask for that help? Where should we go? Do we ask our QIS coordinator in the network? Do we ask a particular member of staff? Do we ask a fellow member? What options do we have if we need help?
I think I'll respond. Thank you so much, Min, for taking us through this process. In case someone needs help with people care, how do I implement or how do I get better? We are starting up what we are calling small support peer mentoring groups. So feel free to write to Immaculate Nafuka on i.nafuka@craynetwork.org. I'll be giving you feedback, especially trying to locate your group that you can meet for support, or how we can directly link up with you to offer further support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Imi. Okay, governance is the module that we've just completed. It comes second in the lists of QIS when you see them, but we've just done it. I'm sure it's fresher in our minds. And the many demands that are there on the board to keep the organization compliant, I think possibly one of the most difficult things about governance is actually finding the people who will give sufficient time to the organization to really help move it forward. I just wonder, and I'm noting the time as well, does anybody have any particular questions about governance at this stage? If not, we will move to the next one. Yes, Humphrey.
Yeah, I just wanted to put this forward probably for us to understand better. So this question is for everybody to be helped. We have scenarios where there is a challenge of succession plans, or you can talk about recruitment probably, where somebody started an organization and they think, recruiting the board members, then it has to be the people who are close to me, the people I know, maybe probably preferably family members, because they think if they bring in more outsiders, then there is a risk, a high risk of the organization being taken over or their vision being diverted and lose focus. So I don't know the kind of guidance you would give to such leaders of organizations for them to be effective in getting the best votes in place.
Well, that's a tricky question. From America and its succession to Uganda and its succession planning to the smallest NGO founded by somebody with a heart and a passion. It's a very difficult challenge. And I'm not quite sure how to answer it, except to put somebody alongside that person who knows them well and can encourage them that a greater legacy is to train others and let go. None of us are going to be here forever, either in a workplace or on this earth. And so preparing other people and training other people is paramount for long-term success. I'm just aware of time, so we're going to keep moving unless anybody else has a comment about that. Okay, the third module in QIS is child protection. There are what are divided into 6 aims and 6 topics. And the beliefs as the top topic was very interesting when we've met recently with government education leaders from various faith backgrounds. In the case of Uganda, they were all adamant that beliefs and values had to remain within child protection. There are obviously many countries which are secularized and would prefer no discussion about beliefs. But we have found in child protection training that if you want somebody to change their behavior with children, they have to first understand why it matters. And sometimes, as well as having to challenge deeply held cultural and religious views, sometimes talking about the person's own background and childhood and what they prefer would have been different is often a way to help people to understand why things need to change. The critical thing here is to have a good, strong child protection policy, and that policy would describe all of these other parts. And I'm sure that we have shared templates, starting with something very simple that's just a couple of pages, and it could go to 80 or 90 pages long. The more you do, the more complex it becomes. And so this would be the first requirement of any network member to have a child protection policy in place. Just going to take a step back and read a couple of the chats about succession planning. After selection or training a group, then make a selection from the board. I think that's the suggestion that Imi's bringing, is to select very carefully who you're putting onto the board and into leadership. And Michelle says succession planning is key to sustainability and often neglected in the South Africa NPO situation. And I know Michelle has studied a master's on the whole issue, so she is very knowledgeable about the ins and outs. And I look forward to listening to Michelle when she gets to discussing governance. The next module is financial accountability. It's possibly one of the easiest to apply in that there are very set rules world over for how finances should be dealt with. And it really is a case of simply applying the rules. Like it or not, there are rules and procedures, and we should follow them. And having somebody that consistently holds those those policy and procedure issues in place in an organization is the way to achieve that module. We're going to keep moving and take questions at the end. We have, I think our time is out, but we do have 5 minutes on the clock. Project planning and design. This is quite a challenging module. Sometimes we're asked to do simple plans by potential donors. I heard recently of one donor organization that requires a pitch to be made by video and reports by video only, no written documentation, which is really interesting, extremely rare. And actually they've realized that there are some flaws in that, and they do need some paper processes as well. But the point is, with project planning and design, certainly for high level government donors, I've forgotten the word for them, when the big donors, the government donors, give to an organization, it does get extremely complex. So in those videos, we gave you a few tips on particular topics, for example, problem trees and organizational trees, but we're aware that there's a lot more training and support that has to come with fundraising, and in things like that, you take your shot, you give it a pitch, and hopefully you succeed, but we well know that many of our things don't always succeed. From the chat, Becca is reminding us that the Mango Handbook is a very useful resource for finance. It is available to download if you Google Mango NGO Finance. It takes you to, they're called something else now, which is not so easy to remember, but it will, if you Google Mango, it still takes you to the right place, and it gives you all the basics for how to do finance, and it gives you a lot of templates as well. So you can do that, or again, you can ask within your network. And finally, we have the child well-being module, which is split into 6 pieces or 6 subsections, and each of them have 3 pointers under it. Each of the 6 picks up on particular UNCRC Convention on the Rights of the Child standards. And so across these 6 topics, each of those standards will be covered. It's very interesting. Let's take, for example, the spiritual. And again, where there's secularization, many people would be surprised to see that. But the UNCRC talks about the need for a child to have a freedom of choice of religion, guided by the family. And some of us might not always understand that, but if you look at the Christian message, then that is exactly what happens. We are given free choice. Within Christian organizations, we would hope and challenge people to share in a non-confrontational and non-demanding way the good news of salvation. And we do hope that that happens. But you must never pressure a child to make a choice in the fear that they will not get help if they don't show some indication of commitment. That's just to pick up on one aspect. I know another aspect of child well-being and the Convention on the Rights of the Child that people get quite concerned about is the issue of privacy. what happens in teenagers' rooms, but that's not what it's talking about. It's talking particularly that as a child grows up, they should always be given privacy in their circumstances. I often am amazed that we can stand children on doorsteps to bathe them, and then we get worried why they're less careful when they're teenagers. Anyway, that's a summary. We have less than 1 minute, but just to say, we continue to walk the journey with you. Please contact your network facilitators to get more help in any of the topics, to get templates, to get resources. They are there for you, and they are ready and willing and urging and coercing you to get that high standard of the accountability. That's where we want to go. We want all of you to be able to get that level. So thanks for joining us today. God bless you, and do get in touch with any other queries and questions.